Hello there.
Welcome back to Star Wars in a Galaxy, where we watch all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Jacob,
And I'm Eli.
and today we are coming at you with regular episode number 104 of our show. Today we are continuing our rewatch of season 2 of Star Wars Bad Batch. We are looking at Faster, Entombed, and Tribe, the fourth, fifth, and sixth episode of the show.
Yep, we are coming from you, as you can probably hear, with our first in-person episode in a while. We're lucky enough to get to do this. We're so excited every time we get to do this in person. Usually we do this over Zoom sessions. We're still in a Zoom session right now because that's how we record this stuff. But we are actually together. We're talking across from each other on the microphone. This is going to be a very fun episode. Hope we get to do this quite a bit more often. In Faster, while Hunter and Echo are running a supply run for food supplies, I believe it is, Sid takes Tech, Wrecker, and Omega to the planet of Serolonis, I think it's called, and its capital city, Safa Toma, which is infamous for its riot racing industry, which is basically pod racing, but 50% more dangerous. Fun times. Unfortunately, Sid's main racer that she's betting on, a lovable droid named Teo, voiced by comedy legend Ben Schwartz, gets permanently disfigured, permanently destroyed in an accident, engineered by this guy named Malegi, who's an old rival of Sid's. And so Tech must race in Teo's place. But Malegi takes Sid captive until the race is finished. And it's a high stakes race where they need to win this race, or else they're going to be a ton of debt to Malegi, who doesn't seem like he takes to those in debt very kindly. But luckily Tech manages to, through a bunch of shenanigans, win the race against Malegi's racer named Jet Venom, and they managed to leave the planet, though not before Malegi gives them a warning not to trust Sid implicitly.
Jet Venom sounds like the kind of name I'd give a made-up character.
Yes, it would.
Like 7. I didn't catch the last name as well. Jet Venom.
Well, it's Venom.
Venom. Still though.
Still.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So
in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Entombed, is what this episode feels like.
Star Wars and the Indiana Jones Legend of Scar and Null. Okay.
Yeah.
So in the episode Entombed, we are reunited with our good friend Phee Genoa. Now,
is she our good friend? We saw her for like 5 minutes in the first episode.
Fair point. So Omega and Wrecker are Omega and Wrecker are scavenging, and they come across some bits and bobs and whatnot. And Phee Genoa finds one of these trinkets, these knickknacks, these doodads that they've amassed. And she actually finds out that one of these pieces is a compass. Now, Phee Genoa, being the what she call herself, a liberator of ancient treasures.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. So being the liberator of ancient treasures, Star Wars is Indiana Jones, that she is. She convinces the Bad Batch to come with her, to follow this ancient compass to try and find the heart of the mountain, this ancient treasure, basically. And she really sells Omega on the idea of finding treasure to help the Bad Batch financially. Take a shot in this episode every time Omega says treasure. By the way,
you'll be dead.
You will not survive.
You'll be dead.
You will not survive, because she says it a whole lot. So they go to this planet. The planet's name is Nara Skull.
I did not know that.
Wait.
Scaranol is
Scaranol. What?
Do they go to Scar? Is that the planet?
The name of the planet is Scaranol, and the super weapon that they accidentally activate is also called Scaranol.
I just looked it up on Wikipedia, and you're completely right. It's in the Calder Trinary system, Wow, this new the naming is bad.
Because
It's a walker called Scaranol on the planet of
yes, on the planet of Scar.
Scaranol.
You heard
That's
that correctly. So they go you know, it's a very Indiana Jones, you know, they're making their way through booby traps, they get separated, they have to use the compass to illuminate like hidden signs, and they find their way to the heart of the mountain. And Phee Genoa removes the heart of the mountain from its pedestal. However, breaking the number one rule of adventure movies, adventure fiction, don't remove the treasure from the pedestal. Removing the heart of the mountain activates Scaranol, not activates Scaranol, which is this giant walker, which starts, I don't know, walking around and blasting lasers at everything in its path. Um, and this throws the bad mentor inside the walker into chaos because they didn't realize it was a walker. It's buried under a mountain. It's a whole thing. It's pretty cool. And just as the walker is about to fire a laser that will destroy the marauder and stranded on the planet, um, they have the bright idea to put the heart of the mountain back into its pedestal where it belongs, and doing so shuts down the walker. However, the heart of the mountain absorbs all the walker's energy, presumably, and it melts, leaving them empty handed. However, they all live to fight another day.
yeah, so that happened. I'm trying let's see. So Tribe begins. I because I know how it ends. Because I know it ends. I know most of the stuff once they find that character. But the batch traveled to a space station called Vanguard Axis. They're selling these forged chain codes that Tech has created, but Omega gets a bit too curious for her own good and here's a Wookiee crying for help. And that Wookiee, yes, is indeed Gunji, one of the younglings from Star Wars The Clone Wars. He has survived Order 66, and he's been on the run ever since. He's been trying to reach his homeworld of Kashyyyk. The Bad Batch, never shying away from helping a child in need, volunteered to take him to the planet of Kashyyyk. They fight through, they fight the Vanguard Axis crime syndicate, whatever it is, on that space station, and get back on the Marauder. They fly to Kashyyyk, which has been devastated by even already by its year of imperial rule. The forests have been like, there's been a ton of deforestation, a ton of burning of the forests. It's been awful to Kashyyyk's ecosystem, and awful, of course, to the Wookiees who value the ecosystem as a part of their culture. Um, Gunji helps them fend off a bunch of Kinrath, by convincing them not to attack them because they'll only attack back when they're provoked. Um, and but unfortunately they run afoul of one of the Imperial commanders who has taken over the Imperial occupation of Kashyyyk, a Trandoshan named Bobla Venomore. Venomore, of course, has a hatred for Wookiees and has been provided with some Imperial clone troopers, though not new material. He's still using AATs and old Separatist stuff from back when he was allying with the Separatists, which we will talk about. But eventually, Gunji, who doesn't know his tribe that he came from, ends up reuniting with a Wookiee tribe who happily accept him as one of their own. He manages to defeat Bob Venomore in a fight, not by using his lightsaber or the Force or anything that any of the skills he's used, but as a Jedi, but by allowing the Kinrath to capture him and not fighting them. He and Omega, as a sign of respect for him, tries to commune with the trees, which is an important part of Wookiee culture. And that's where the episode ends. So we got 3 very, very interesting episodes to talk about here.
That's one way to describe it.
2 very interesting episodes, and then Entombed. So yeah, let's go to faster.
Yeah, you know, The Bad Batch, it's a kid show. I was really surprised that they had an episode in here that was this racy. Sorry, I had to do it. I had
This
to do it.
wow. All right.
We reached a new low.
That was something right there.
Oh yeah, I don't know. What do you think of this episode? Where do we start here?
I gotta say, I remember when this episode came out, and I already remember after finishing the episode, I'm like, oh, people are gonna hate this. People are gonna say this is filler. People are gonna say this is trash. People are gonna say this doesn't do anything about the characters. And I couldn't disagree more. I love this episode so goddamn much. It is silly, it is goofy, it's intense, it's fun. Um, there's a lot to get into though here. Of course, you have to, for an episode like this, remove Hunter and Echo.
Yeah.
It was a very calculated decision that they made. That Hunter and Echo just so happened to be off on a food run.
You mean the two people who are the only voices of reason in the Bad Batch?
And the moral compass in general, yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yes, that is indeed what I'm talking about. But I also like that you get to see more development from Tech and Wrecker because of that. Because both of them very much, I feel like, with Echo's increased role as a character in this season, are both like the what he said guys of the batch. You know what I mean?
They definitely are taking it even in the first season, but also especially in the second season, they definitely take a back seat.
Well, I would say Wrecker does. I think Wrecker had a bit more of an art, like some stuff going on with him in the first season with all the inhibitor chip stuff. But I think actually Tech, this is, if I had to say one character that this season is shines for, of the batch, it's Tech. Tech gets this season to shine with this episode, with the crossing, which we'll get to, and then of course with his tragic demise at the end of Plan 90, at the beginning of Plan 99. I think that I think that this is Tech's season, honestly. Which is really cool because and I like getting these more dimensions to him. But we'll get to how we get Tech more dimensions later. But yeah, but we get Tech and Wrecker as a more central role. Yeah, and I wrote in my notes, Hunter and Echo would also never fucking approve of any of the shit that is about to happen, but it needs to happen because it's fun. So here we go.
Yeah.
So up until this watch, by the way, I'm telling you, I thought the planet's name was Safa Toma.
It's the planet's name. Not, is that the name of the city? Or
It's the name of the city.
what's the name of the
It's
planet?
a Cantonica Canto bite problem. The planet is called Serolonis. They don't say it in the episode.
Yes.
They never said it in the episode, and they said Safa Toma like it was the planet name, but no.
I guess we're just used to the planet name being whatever place name they use because
Yes,
in Star Wars, unless it's Coruscant, it pretty much feels unless it's Coruscant or Tatooine, in which we have multiple places that we know about, it pretty much feels like every planet just consists of one major city, one major population hub.
isn't that how planets usually work, Jacob?
Yeah, you know, one city, one biome covering the whole planet.
Yeah,
That's how it works. That's totally how it works.
that's how planets work, right?
Love that.
But yeah. Let's talk about Riot Racing.
Let's talk about Riot.
Riot Racing is insane.
I like the Phantom Menace vibes. I like the callbacks, and I think this kind of shows what kind of a galaxy we're dealing with when we have a spectator sport where the spectators occasionally get shot dead with lasers.
Yeah. Actually, one of the things I think is really interesting about this episode, and I think the Bad Batch does really interestingly this season, just in general, is that this episode doesn't have the Empire at all.
Yeah.
But do you notice it? No, not really. I wouldn't say so. But they make it work. They make these episodes that don't have the Empire in them, even with the Reign of the Empire, they make them work.
Yeah, well, I think it's more than reasonable to assume that there's still parts of the galaxy that are relatively lawless. such as Safa Toma planet upon
Serolonis.
the planet Serolonis upon which Safa Toma resides. So yeah, I like that as well. I think maybe that's one of the reasons why people might say that this episode is filler if you're just kind of watching it just casually, without if you're just watching it and you just, oh, there's no empire in this episode.
Yeah.
Like even if that's not what you're explicitly thinking, that is one reason why this might
Is because
come
of
across
the
as filler
Empire's
because
the Empire's absence.
they're running from the Empire, they're fugitives from the Empire. That's the whole main conflict. It's them, it's Crosshair, it's Rampart. So where's the Empire in this? What are they doing? But I think this is definitely not. In some ways, it kind of does play the role of a filler episode. I think I agree with you that it's absolutely not a filler episode because it tells us a lot about the characters and it deepens our understanding, complicates our understanding of Sid.
Yeah.
Even though it kind of tells us, even though it kind of confirms what anyone who's paying attention.
I want to talk about Sid actually because Sid.
This is really Sid's episode.
That's what I was gonna say. I went into this remembering this is a tech episode. It isn't. It's a Sid episode.
It's like Tech has the hero moment, but
Tech has the hero
as a character. Tech is still pretty like we get a lot of complications.
Yeah, I don't think this is the tech episode. I think that's the crossing, which we'll get to later this season.
Yeah, Tech's time will come.
But yeah, this is Sid's episode, and we didn't even realize it until after the whole season came out. That's
watching this in retrospect.
Yeah,
happens down the line. Sid makes
which is, by the way, why we do this. Why we waited all this time to do the Bad Batch.
Makes it more
because it's a Sid episode. I want to talk about Maleki because this is the funniest thing to me about this episode. Maleki is obviously the antagonist of this episode.
Yeah.
But and let me be clear, I was talking with somebody else the other day about this. I'm not saying that Maleki is a good person. I'm not saying that. I don't think he is a good person. But what does he actually do this episode that is so villainous?
We assume that we're told he's a gangster.
We're told he's a gangster, and that's it. The real villain of this episode is Sid.
That's like everything is her fault. She's the reason, and like Tech even says that in this episode. He says I can't remember the exact.
I have it here. Yeah. This is not the first time she has required our assistance due to her dealings with individuals of questionable integrity. It is a problematic pattern. I'm like, yeah, Tech, you don't say.
When I was rewatching this morning, I was like screaming at my team. I was like, no, keep talking about that. You need to talk about that more. Don't let this slide. And they totally let it slide. But
they do let it slide. But there's this like, and again, I'm not saying that Maleki is a good person because there's that throwaway line. The last person who didn't pay Maleki on time apparently took, quote, a permanent pit stop to the Eastern Sand Dune, which is harsh. Sid entered into that, like, Sid knew what she was getting into with, let's take the
Sid knew what she was
Sid knew what was getting into and didn't have a backup plan when she lost. And so she screwed the Bad Batch in that way. Maleki was just doing what he was doing. I'm not saying it's good, but he was just doing what he was doing.
Yeah, Sid knew the rules of the game.
Sid knew the rules of the game, and she still screwed them.
Yeah, she still chose to endanger the Batch. Crucially, she chose to endanger Omega, who is not a professional soldier.
And also, by the way, let's just what was I gonna say? Let's go back to the fact that she's like, yeah, I'll repay you sometime later for this. The next time they call upon her help, she's too busy to help them. I believe it's either the crossing or the next episode, which I forget what it's called.
Yeah, she really screws them.
Like she is proving how untrustworthy she is. They're going to the end of the episode. That loyalty is admirable, but with Sid, it doesn't always go both ways. Watch your backs. I remember.
That was a realist thing said in this episode.
Yeah, and it was said by the bad guy. The bad guy.
Well, yeah, in quotes.
And I remember hearing that at the time, and I think this was something that Alex Damon said in his review on Star Wars Explained, that I was hoping, and I think he was hoping this too, that this entire season would be Sid proving him wrong.
Yeah.
But this entire season was Sid proving him right. That was a warning. And we just didn't see it. And they just didn't see it. And they ended off worse for that.
Well, it's interesting. I feel like one of the things that is kind of maybe perplexing, maybe it's not perplexing, but one of the tensions of this season is, I feel like, as an audience member, the writing is kind of on the wall for who Sid is, what her MO is, and we kind of already see it heading in that direction. Honestly, since season one, since midway through season one,
Yeah.
she's kind of she just keeps doing the same thing over and over. She's strong arming them. She's kind of blackmailing them and she's pretty bold and really, so she's actually really open about she's just she's using them because she can and because they don't have anywhere.
I'm pretty certain, I will say this, I'm pretty certain this is the last time they work directly with her this season.
Yeah.
So they, to their credit, have started to see the writing on the wall. They call for her help after, losing their ship and being stranded on a planet, and she doesn't do anything.
That I think is the true indictment.
Yeah, but and then they go to Ord Mantell after having like literally no other place to go in the middle of emergency and losing tech in in Plan 99. So yeah, it was and I think we talked about this in our episode with Father Son Galaxy. Check that episode out. That was great talking with them. They just had nowhere else to turn.
Yeah.
But other than that, they don't. The only like scoundrel / outcast / that kind of person they communicate with this season from now on is Phee.
Yeah.
It's not Sid. It's Phee. And we'll get to that when we get to Entombed, obviously. But here's another thing we get. I love that also we get in this episode Sid's full name.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was gonna say
Sidderin Scaleback.
Sidderin Scaleback.
Nice job, Star Wars.
That feels like
on the nose. I also do like, this is a fun detail I noticed. So Malegi obviously has henchmen. Did you recognize any of the henchmen?
I was one of the Trandoshans did look very familiar.
Yeah, I think he should have.
Is it from Ahsoka on Fosca?
Yeah, indeed it is.
Really?
That's Garnak from TCW.
That's Garnak. Oh my
That's I wish we'd gotten a bit more of a call out for Clone Wars, but like I wish he had just said like, "Hey Garnak," or something like.
That almost that went over my head. Like I was.
It went over my head until I knew, like, going into this episode, like I knew I had been researching it. I'd been researching stuff for trivia purposes at some other time. I'm like,
yeah, sure.
Is that? And then I realized, wait, Garnak was in that episode, and so I looked. So I remember when I saw it, I'm like, wait, that's Garnak, isn't it?
That would be a wicked trivia question.
Oh yeah.
Hate you. If you want people to hate you, that would be.
I will say this to you. I will say this to everybody who's listening. If you're a player and you're playing in this, we haven't announced our July event yet, but our July event is going to be a huge event. I'm very excited for it. That question will not be in our July event. I'm now making sure of it. I'm going to like DM Connor after this, basically saying like, hey, Even though I'm probably good because
Make sure you just in case.
Make sure you don't write that question.
Just in case.
Because Bad Batch enters the cadence for July. This season enters the cadence in July. Yeah, so
I'm so scared.
don't worry, I think it'll be fine. Yeah, I think I'm gonna edit that out just because people don't know. But what it's fine. No, I'm excited for that too. But yeah, no, Bad Batch, I've realized how many like TCW exclusive characters they brought back. Cad Bane, Gunji, Garnak, Ryuchuchi. Like they're gonna roll in this show.
I guess before Bane was in.
Before Bane was in book, yeah.
Makes sense.
Season 1, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
We talk about.
Teo, my man, my main man, Teo.
Teo is hilarious.
Teo is fantastic. Of course, he's hilarious. He's voiced by Ben Schwartz. Ben Schwartz is a fantastic comedian. If you don't know him, the great comedic actor. He's John Ralphio in Parks and Rec. He's
I didn't know that connection. That's great.
Yeah, he's in Parks and Rec. He did the voice of BB-8 with Bill Hader. He helped create the voice of BB-8 with Bill Hader. Great comedic actor. I love him here. Love him as Teo. Fantastic. I remember I saw him in the credits of the episode. I'm like, oh my god, it's Ben Schwartz. That's great. I love Teo. Teo's fantastic. We need to see Teo again. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. But let's not talk about Teo for a second. Let's talk about his competitors or Tech's competitors.
Okay.
I'm gonna list off these names because they're fantastic. Jet Venom.
Good start.
Bosco the Mad Bomber Bricks. There's so much to unpack just in that one. And Steel Claw Kane. Vicious Vid Santari. Haxxon the War Gnome Trajanix.
The War Gnome.
The War Gnome.
Like a garden gnome.
I know this is and the next one is a favorite of friend of the show, Nikki Kumar of the Imperial Senate podcast and Octo Radio, because he changed his Twitter name to this for a while. In a specific way. Quick Draw Quasar. I just remember he loved that name. The Trickster, Flash Ractor, and Hyper Rod.
So you can see why the announcer was a little disappointed when it was just that's the best moment.
Heck,
absolutely awesome. That's my favorite moment in the episode. Is just the announcer going, wait, it's just Tech. That's its name. Where's the rest of it?
Yeah. I will say, I think you should have had a little bit of left out because Hyper Rod, even though it is a silly name, it's not crazy. It's not as crazy as Haxxon the War Gnome Trajanix or Vicious Vid Santari.
The War Gnome is the best one, but these names should tell you that wow, Star Wars
who wrote this episode?
The audiences of the Star Wars galaxy are really, really violent in their entertainment tastes.
I mean, because this far out in the galaxy, yeah, I'm sure. Who wrote this episode? Oh, this was a Matty Mitch episode. Matt Michnovetz had so much fun writing those names. I just know it. I just know Matt Michnovetz had so much of a fun time writing those names down. I just know it. Yeah, we have 2 Matt Michnovetz episodes today, and coincidentally, they're both the better ones. No offense in 2.
I'm actually, for once, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
But we'll get to Entombed when we get to Entombed. I remember I want to get to Tech now because Tech takes over after Teo's destroyed.
Yeah.
He's so good at this. He's really good at this. And it's so sad to think of a possible successful mission to Area 2 and then for him to go back to Safa Toma with Phee and to spend his life riot racing.
Man,
because I remember that was what a lot of people were convinced that was going to happen at the end of the season. They were all going to part ways, and that's what he was going to do.
would have been that would have been very satisfying.
Yeah, it is that what could have been, and like him like abandoning the weapons and then just blasting through that haze of dust and crossing the finish line, and then the whole crowd cheering at him and he's looking up and just almost in disbelief. Like that's an all-time Star Wars moment right there.
Yeah, that was a fun moment. I didn't personally the racing wasn't very exciting to me. It felt a little bit predictable to me. I didn't love it, but I mean the moment when Tech kind of has his moment, one of his moments in this episode, it's really great because, like you said, he's one of the Bad Batch. He's kind of the B side guy, one of the B side guys in the Bad Batch. You know, you have Hunter and you have Echo, you know, kind of talking a lot about. They're the ones who are really having a lot to say about the moral direction of the Bad Batch. They're the ones having those conversations. They're the ones who are kind of who we often think of when we think of those questions. And then Wrecker and Tech who are kind of just sometimes it feels like they're just there along for the ride. But not in this episode.
Not in this episode. Yeah.
How about Omega in this episode? This episode, I came away thinking a lot about Omega because I was surprised, especially rewatching this, how far Omega kind of sticks her neck out for Sid.
Yeah.
Not her specifically, but she kind of spurs the batch. You know, she's standing.
Yeah, I will say that Omega, love her to death. She did a whoopsie daisy in this episode.
Yeah, this episode's kind of. I was a little tired of Omega after these episodes. I think it's kind of.
Really, I think that this one is the only one that I would say, yeah, Omega maybe did the wrong thing. Entombed was a harmless, fun adventure that almost got their ship blown up, but we'll get to that. Tribe, she actively did a good thing.
Yeah. I think it's kind of her personality. I mean, it's obviously it's her personality. It's who she is as a person. You know, she's very compassionate. She's very concerned about others. Anyone who she considers to be a friend, she's like anyone at all who she even remotely considers a friend. She's like immediately like ride or die for them.
Yeah,
and she'll do like absolutely anything to like avoid like harm coming to anyone who she has been friends with, even friendly with. Because I don't think Sid is really. I don't think Sid is really a friend of the Bad Batch.
No, I don't think she is either. And Omega definitely wasn't friendly with Roland Durand, but he saved his ass from the Pikes for reasons I'm still trying to understand.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of who she. That's kind of who she is, where she finds her way and relates in the world by being extremely compassionate and extremely altruistic. However, this is one of those episodes where I think we see that kind of being a little bit of a problem. I think it's honestly maybe it's that, and it's also kind of her kind of youthful. You know, she's very young. You know, she has a lot of innocence. You know, she's very naive in some respects. Even as we see her kind of growing with the Bad Batch, she is naive in some aspects. I think we see that here. She, I think, kind of takes it too far and kind of maybe acts a little bit too instinctively without thinking about the safety of the Bad Batch or thinking about what. And I think that just kind of shows her naiveness, maybe.
Yeah, her naive. Yes, look,
that Sid doesn't always have their best interest.
She's a kid. She's allowed to mess up. You know, she's a character in this. But I do think that she walks out of this episode taking a bit of an L.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a lesson. Maybe it's a little bit of a lesson for her. I think. I hope that in season 3 we see Omega become a little bit more seasoned.
I don't think she already has.
She already definitely
has. But yeah, I think. Do I think she took a bit of an L this episode? Yes, but like I also think that
she did also like Same Sid though, so I mean,
Yeah. I was gonna say that Tribe was the reason Tribe happened was because of her and because of her sticking out her neck for Gunji, who was somebody in actual need of saving.
Yeah.
And so to me,
Sid was in need of saving, just like it's Sid, and B, it's her own fault entirely.
yes, yeah. I guess I just mean like
I
I
think
feel like the two cancel out for me a bit.
well,
And Entombed,
it shows both sides of Mega. You know,
yeah,
this is who she is. It can lead to amazing things.
and it can also
It can also
lead
put
to
Bad Batch in trouble
yeah,
where they might not necessarily need to be.
yeah, absolutely. So do you have anything else for this episode, or do you want to go on to or you want to share your overall thoughts on Faster?
Thoughts on Faster. I think this is a pretty good episode. I don't think it's not one of the episodes that really stands out to me from season 2. It's not one of the great episodes, but it's certainly not bad. Obviously, it's very thought provoking for the audience learning more about Sid, Tech. And it's a fun episode.
Yeah.
I like the Riot. I like the Riot racing thing that they do. Um, yeah, overall, I don't really have any major complaints about it. It's a pretty good episode.
I'll just say this. I see the people who call this filler and aren't in love with this episode and don't see its value as a part of the story. And I respect them. I just think they're wrong. I like respectfully, I just think they're wrong. I think this episode is a barrel full of fun. It's my favorite of the 3 from today. And I've no problem with saying that, even though I do love Tribe. I do. But I think this episode just hits a little hard for me, just because I just like the goofiness. I love the intensity. I love, great character moments, fun moments. You have it all in this episode, even if it is not like the most like dense, like, it doesn't have the most tragedy or the crazy character arcs in it. Like, I like this episode specifically taking place after the solitary clone because there's just stark contrast. Because those 2 episodes could not be more different.
Oh, absolutely.
But they're both equally valuable in this season and the way it's constructing it.
It's lighting things up now.
Yeah.
I will say about filler and the discussions about filler and that. I think that filler episodes, if we're defining that as an episode of a TV show that doesn't contribute to the overarching plot or the big picture of a show or the season of a show, I only really have a problem with filler when it fails to I have no problem with filler sometimes. I think Star Wars Rebels, especially in the early seasons, season 1 especially, are some examples of a show that has a lot of filler.
Well, I don't think those are necessarily filler. I think that filler is actually a higher bar to reach than most people think it is.
Well, I think. Sorry, let me clarify.
You mean like
I don't think all
episodes?
I don't think a filler episode is necessarily saying something bad.
I just think the term is pejorative, but I think I understand what you're saying.
The term is used like negatively.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily think
like episodes that don't immediately move the plot forward.
Yeah, they don't immediately move the plot forward. I think, like for example, like an episode
character development episode.
Episodes like Fight or Flight, I think, is a really well done filler episode.
Yeah,
because here's what I think, especially if we're talking about these types of shows. I think if an episode doesn't immediately move the larger plot forward in some way, it has to either really play well with the characters' personalities and be really entertaining in that way. It has to show some type of character growth for one or more characters, or characters growing in terms of their relationships with one another. You know, how they relate to each other, discovering things, their relationships changing.
Character development, lore development.
Yeah, or it has to develop or it has to be really good. It has to develop the characters, or it has to develop something, or it has to be really thought provoking, or it just has to be really good.
Yeah.
I think Faster ticks a lot of these boxes.
Yeah.
In contrast to Tribe. Sorry, not Tribe. In contrast to Entombed, which I think is an example, a perfectly placed example of an episode that is also filler that I think fails to do these things.
Yeah, filler. I will say this.
Yeah.
I not filler. Entombed. I will say this. I was going into this episode because this is the one. I think the Bad Batch season 1 has 14 hits and 2 misses for me. Season one
Okay.
has 14 hits and 2 misses. I think this season has 15 hits and 1 miss. And I think that 1 miss is Entombed. And I was hoping going to get into this episode, I'm like, I want to be able to find something with this episode. I really do. I want to like it. This has elements of it that I like. But it just doesn't have what it takes for me to be, because yeah, again, is it a fun adventure? Yes. I'll say this. I like it better than Infested. I mean, that's not a high bar, but it's not the Infested of this season. I think it's the Cornered of this season, which is the other one I didn't like from last season. Cornered, I understand what it was trying to do. Like Entombed, I understand what it was trying to do. It just like did only that and got that done pretty quickly, and then just kind of wrapped that up. And that was the episode. Instead of like doing that, but that goes sideways and it leads to more thought-provoking stuff about X, Y, and Z. No, this one just kind of accomplishes its goal and just kind of leaves us there.
Yeah. I don't think it has much of a goal to begin with. I think they're literally just hunting for treasure and we don't really get it. Anything else?
Yeah, I struggle with this episode, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I will say that this is I love this. One of the first notes I took with this episode, I'm like, I love that we got the squad all back together for the first time in this season, because they've been split up for most of the season so far. And not that I mind that, and they're split up again.
Yeah.
God damn it. But that's not permanent either, because we fixed that about 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
That's actually, I think, honestly, my problem with this episode is that it makes decisions and then immediately unmakes them. They're split up for maybe 5 minutes. There's a they get the and then there's the other one back in the episode, which is they figure out that this treasure in the heart of the mountain is it is activating this huge super weapon and this big mech. And then they're like, and then they're like, oh, we gotta get out of here. We gotta and then Phee goes, what about the treasure? I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Are they gonna have a huge battle about this? About like, they try and convince Phee out of getting the treasure, and then they're just like, nope.
Yeah, nothing feels consequential in this episode. It feels like the plot just rolls forward and whatever happens, and it doesn't feel like any of the decisions that the characters make really have much say in what happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
except for the beginning.
I'll say this. So, and I will say this. I don't want to mention this episode without mentioning Indiana Jones, because it's obviously an Indiana Jones style adventure, but it's not an Indiana Jones style adventure. It's an Indiana Jones greatest hits playlist.
Yeah.
The giant boulder is a trap. Is Raiders, obviously. The amulet revealing a location is also Raiders. The disappearing floor, the thing where they roll the thing that and the floor caves in, that's Last Crusade.
Yeah.
The mysterious MacGuffin at the end that turns out to be way more dangerous than any of them realize. That's from like all of them.
Yeah.
Hunter tells Phee that she's just, quote, making it up as she goes, which is a paraphrasing of a quote from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And all they were missing were some racist depictions of Indian people, Mads Mikkelsen and Shia LaBeouf, and they would have covered all of the Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah. What I will say about this episode, the beginning to me is it was more infuriating than I remember, because if you look at this from okay, I'm just going to assume that Phee Genoa doesn't spend a lot of time around kids or young people in general. And I'm just going to hope that she maybe thought that Omega is much farther along developmentally than she actually is. Because this seems like she is blatantly just preying on the innocence of a literal kid in order to gain wealth and force the Bad Batch to go into a dangerous situation with her. And it seems like she's kind of just taking Omega on along for like she's taking Omega for a ride and trying to exploit her wide-eyed innocence and enthusiasm for the world. And it
Yeah.
didn't sit right with me, and it left me with an icky feeling like, I really don't like Phee after this episode very much. I really don't.
And I get that. I think the only difference between like, because I think this episode honestly gets at the difference between Sid and Phee.
Yeah, and I doubt that's how it was intended to play.
Yeah, and I,
Phee is.
yeah, and I think that the idea is because you know what, like one of Omega's last lines in this episode, right? That was really fun.
Yeah.
Like she enjoyed herself doing this. Like, yeah, it almost destroyed their ship, and that's another problem. But like it didn't. Then
They almost all died like
they almost all died like
But
4 times, but they didn't.
All's well that well.
So she's just excited for a thrill ride.
Yeah.
Like it that had no consequences for any of them. Sids often have negative consequences, but it'll be okay afterwards.
Yeah.
Fee's just it was just a fun adventure, and that's all it was, and that's all it needed to be.
I kind of disagree a little bit just because they were in serious danger at several points. And I think this episode is the biggest argument against this is the biggest argument against letting Omega be a part of the match. This is the biggest argument against giving her more as Omega wants. This is the biggest argument against giving Omega the responsibility that she wants.
That for one episode she decides to go on a treasure hunt.
Well, she doesn't really decide to. The way the episode plays out, it pretty much seems like Phee is purposefully kind of telling her tall tales and
yes,
ingratiating her and getting her.
Here's I guess why I don't. Here's why I guess I don't mind right now.
Yeah.
If it was anybody else, I would absolutely agree with you. But let's think about this, okay? If Wanda Sykes told you that there's great treasures beyond, you would believe her, right? Because she's Wanda Sykes.
Yeah, we wouldn't believe Phee Genoa.
Phee Genoa is Wanda Sykes in space.
Well, Megan doesn't know that. The Bad Batch doesn't know that. They have no idea who Wanda Sykes. There's not Wanda Sykes in space.
I understand that. But I'm just saying, like, personality. I'm not saying because she's Wanda Sykes. I'm not saying because she's Wanda Sykes. I'm saying because Fee's personality is very similar to Wanda Sykes' personality. Like, again, I'm just saying.
All I'm saying is I don't want to. It's not a huge moral indictment of everyone, but this just left me with a weird taste in my mouth. And I'm kind of like, huh, I'm sure it wasn't intended. But to me, this thing came off, I think, making Phee Genoa way creepier and kind of more of an anti-hero than I think might have been intended.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I will say
But I
that
think she definitely obviously she redeems herself and like she's a fun character, so it's not really
she gives us Pabu. Let's calm down with that. She gives us Pabu. That's later in the season, but yeah.
Yeah.
And so I also I will say I said this. Hunter seems about as interested in the premise of this episode as I am, which is really saying something. I love this is actually my thing is I love Hunter the entire time. He is so infuriated. He's so exasperated with Phee the entire time. He's like, why the fuck are we doing this?
Well, I feel like Hunter's kind of a pushover in this because he's like basically
I feel like
basically they're like Phee is like, hey guys, there could be treasure. Hunter's like, no way. this is obviously a terrible idea. We're not doing this. And then Omega just go, oh, come on, please, can't we?
Yeah.
All right, fine. Let's do
I
it.
don't think I don't think that's Hunter being a pushover. I think that's Hunter being a father, or like I guess an older brother in this
It's not
situation.
just a pushover, you know.
But
yeah.
but like I feel, but it feels like
That's every parent.
that. Yeah, that's what I feel
Every
like.
parent
It
has an
it feels
experience
like
wanting
it feels like Omega asked him, Dad, can we go to the zoo 100 times?
Yeah.
And then he finally is just like, okay, fine, we'll go to the zoo.
Hunter's definitely the one who says we have food at home.
Hunter does say we have food at home. He definitely does say that. Oh my freaking God. Yes, he does say it. That's fantastic. That's great. I love that. If that's not the title, that's at least going in the episode notes. That's 100%. Hunter is the we have food at home parent.
Hunter's we have food at home. Echo drives to McDonald's, goes to the drive-thru, and then orders one black coffee.
Wrecker will take
Wrecker will start chanting McDonald's too.
Where this episode loses me. And yes, there is a point where this episode loses me. Because the traps are fun, the booby traps are fun and all that kind of stuff. But at the end, the payoff is that it turns into a mech. And the mech goes around destroying everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah. It just shoots lasers at the ground a few times and it almost blows up their ship. And then it collapses and falls down.
Yeah. And I remember somebody on Twitter theorizing, I'm like, they're like, is this an early Zepho creation tying it into Fallen Order? I'm like, that would have been cool to drop that name. Sort of wish they had done that.
Maybe it's the Rakan Infinite Empire. Who knows?
Again, would have been cool. We know they're canon now because of Andor. Would have loved if they had mentioned that.
The whole thing feels, like I said, it's just kind of. This is kind of an. I hate to say it, but in many ways, this kind of just feels like a big fat nothing burger of an episode. You know?
It's fun. I'll give it the compliment of it's fun, but that's all I can say about it.
I would say fun is stretching it because for me, and
again, it's the one miss of this season for me. 15 hits, 1 miss. So it's a pretty damn good ratio. We just happen to be stuck this episode with the 1 miss in there.
Yeah.
But let's get back to what we like. Let's get back to what we like, and let's go to Tribe.
Let's go to Tribe.
I remember this one improved substantially on the rewatch for me. And it's not that I hated this first time around. I had a very specific issue that was a weird thing for me because this is, and I mean no disrespect to this is a condensed version of an arc of the Clone Wars that never existed.
Yeah.
Like literally that's what this is. Most of this episode, and of course this episode is written by Michnovetz, who also wrote the arc that of the Clone Wars that this was based on. So he basically just recycled a lot of his own material for this, which I have no problem with. I did on the day, but that was just because I was hoping for something like a bit newer. But because it was like my weekly Star Wars, I'm like, oh, I want something new and refreshing, and not just something on. But like again, once I got over the fact, like once I wasn't watching this for anything new or exciting or anything stuff like that, and I was being greedy in that way, and got to appreciate what this episode was saying. Hell yes. I gotta say, the build up to the Gunji reveal is fantastic.
Yeah.
The build up to the Gunji reveal is fantastic. We see the lightsaber jiggling on the belt. You know, we know that's my favorite thing is that obviously the highlight moment for everybody of I feel like for a lot of people of that Bad Batch season 2 trailer was seeing that Gunji was alive and that Gunji was going to appear in this season.
I know it was for me.
Yeah.
I know it was for me.
And we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
But it was still extremely exciting.
Yes, it definitely was. I think that I love seeing Gunji in this episode. You know, I'm a big Wookiee fan. I'm a big Gunji fan. big Kashyyyk fans of this episode for me, and yet struggling to put my finger on why I feel this way. But this one didn't improve for me with the rewatch. I didn't like it as much this time as the first time. It was by no means a bad episode. I think it's still a great episode, but it just didn't. I don't know. It didn't have the same pizzazz the second time around for me.
Maybe some of that, I don't know. I'm just speculating here. Maybe some of that was the novelty of Gunji still, like, because like you couldn't believe that
the shine of this kind of fan favorite, not quite Glup Shido type of character, but definitely like.
And how dare you say fan favorite? He's not my favorite of the younglings, and my favorite of the younglings still could be a body in a closet right now. How dare you? Hashtag justice for Katuni.
Okay.
Katuni deserves so does Gnome, so does Zat, so does Petro. Yes, I'm standing up for Petro.
Petro. Oh. Yeah, I mean they're younglings, you know. Just because their personalities are annoying doesn't mean you should hate them. But yeah,
I'm sorry, did you just shade Katuni? That's not gonna stand here.
No, I'm shading Petro.
Yeah, no.
Katuni, a little bit.
Anyway, Katuni is a precious, sweet baby girl, and she and Omega would be best friends.
I didn't realize you had such strong feelings about Katuni.
I'm pretty sure I told you how much I like Katuni from in the.
You probably did.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we watched those episodes, though.
It has, yeah. No, no, no. She's a great character. And she'd better have survived. Uh, uh, yeah, yeah. It's great to know that Gunji's alive, but you know, hashtag justice for Katuni. I want to talk, of course, about this line. And I want to talk more about this arc. And I know we talked about this on a tier list episode that we did around a year ago with friend of the show Connor Chikiti. Wrecker goes, been a while since we've been back to Kashyyyk. And yes, it has, Wrecker. Yes, it has. This episode takes heavily from an unfinished arc of Star Wars: The Clone Wars written by Matt Michnovetz himself. That involved, among other things, the Bad Batch taking a mission against the Separatists on Kashyyyk. Yoda was supposed to be with them as well. The episode was supposed to explain the, quote, good relations with the Wookiees line from Revenge of the Sith. I assume in the canon scheme of things that arc still did happen, but I think it probably happened a little differently than in the notes we have for the plan arc, because I believe that Venomore was supposed to be in that arc, and I believe he was supposed to die. So that obviously wouldn't have worked because he dies here instead.
Yeah.
But again, this feels like, and there was this whole part about the Wookiees speaking to the trees in that arc, and obviously that transferred over. So a lot of this does feel like, okay, we're just going to transfer this over 2 years from the TCW. It was originally going to be part of season 6 of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And we're just going to transfer it over a year, 2 years, 2.5 years over to here. And mostly it stayed intact, and it was a completely great episode. But yeah, we also see Kinrath. I think this is the first canon appearance of Kinrath. This is the first canon appearance of Kinrath.
I'm not sure.
Let's see. Oh, these are netcasters. Never mind. These are netcasters. They're not Kinrath. They're called netcasters. They were based on Kinrath. Kinrath, of course, premiered in the first Knights of the Old Republic game. So there's that. So I was wrong about the Kinrath thing. Then never mind. So yeah.
I will say one thing I like about the thing is I think
The netcasters.
So the netcasters, not the
Yeah.
is that usually in Star Wars, whenever there's some kind of big scary monster, they just shoot it and kill it. And they have to shoot it, they have to hack at it, and they have to kill it. And animal lover. I'm an avid environmentalist, and I love seeing that over and over and over again. I could get into a whole thing about the potential the potential ups and downs, the morality of kind of showing and glorifying killing animals so recklessly, but I don't want to do that right now. However, I like that they find another solution. That made me really happy for once.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ezra because he does this meditation thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually also do like and this is one of the things I love about this episode is showing us how Gunji is letting go of some of the things that he was doing when he was a Jedi, but also is still a Jedi. Like that was a bit like and this is I said I said this it was a very Star Wars thing to do. You know, Gunji wins by pacifism, by not fighting the netcaster. As is the way of the Jedi. He still got it. It's not like somebody like, and I'm not blaming this guy because he's been through a lot of shit. But we see Cal Kestis in both games, Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, just hacking, slashing his way through anything that crosses his path.
Yeah. The turn we're talking about this off the pot. We're talking about this, the contrast between especially between the game and
ludonarrative dissonance.
Ludonarrative dissonance is something that hits any Jedi in the game very, very hard.
Yeah. And it's easier to avoid in a TV show because you're not controlling the character.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, and then now of course we have we should probably talk about Bob Venamore. This Trandoshan foreman who is defeated by Gunji, but was also yeah, but who was also allied with the Empire. And what I really like about this is like this idea again, because the Empire probably hates the Trandoshans as much, maybe a little less than they do the Wookiees.
Yeah.
But they have a common goal. But of course, as soon as the Empire doesn't need the Trandoshans, they're gonna throw them aside.
Yes. Well, I mean, man, it seems what other species but the Wookiees? There's a whole other species that exists as their neighbor that seemingly exists just to give them help.
Yep.
That's great. I mean, but yeah, look, the Empire is obviously using that to their advantage. They're gonna cast them aside, like you said.
And I love that that's like it's not like a direct thing of this episode, but I love it's like an undertone of this episode. Like we don't directly think about it, but it's still there.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's classic. It's classic for Star Wars. This Traditions, Wookiees, they go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think say, oh yeah, and then we get this line of this episode that I love: Jedi or not, he's still a child.
Yeah.
It's one of the thesis statements of this season, in my opinion, of the thesis statements of the show. The Bad Batch don't turn help down to someone in need. They don't do that. That's not how they do. They regardless of age, species, belief system, anything else, they don't turn down help somebody. They don't turn down help to someone in need. There's a reason, and I'm not saying that this episode is better than Faster and Entombed. I like it better than Entombed and less than Faster. But I think it's more natural to the show than both of them because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're helping people in need. They're not just doing this for themselves. They're not doing it for Sid, who obviously doesn't have the greatest of motivation for them. They're doing this to help others.
Yeah. This is
an Echo philosophy winning out episode.
This is their altruistic arc.
Yeah. And we're gonna get to that a lot next week because both of the episodes, I mean, they don't appear in the 7th episode, but in the 8th episode, they are doing it's the same. They're doing it for the greater good. They're doing it to help people, not just for themselves and getting by.
Yeah, I think that this is a kind of a turning point episode because obviously we see so much of that going on. You know, the debate of are we out for ourselves with the match. You know, how much do we stick our necks out? How much do we want to fight and take up arms versus try to disappear for Omega's sake, especially. So it is cool, especially seeing Omega kind of take the lead here. So that complicates things too. What do you do when you know you have to raise a kid? You know, there's certain things that a kid needs.
Yeah.
But the kid wants to go in the opposite direction.
They're
No,
both
Omega
just
wants to
they're
run
both
straight
just
forward.
kids, but they don't get to be.
Yeah.
Not in this galaxy is another line.
That was the hardest hitting line for me. That was a fantastic one.
Yeah, it's really sad, and you know, I love Omega's relationship with those kids whose childhoods were ripped away from them with Gunji, with Hera in last season. But it's also just so tragic because they don't get to have the normal childhoods. They have to fight for people to have normal childhoods that they lacked.
Yeah,
And it's the tragedy of the Imperial era.
it is.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. But I think, unless you have anything, what do you think of Tribe?
I think it was a great episode. Made definitely my favorite. Definitely my favorite of the three. Very, very. I was loving that episode. Definitely one of the best episodes in this season. Not the best, in my opinion. There are others, but even though I didn't like it as much as the first time, this one was up there. I really liked. I liked the message. It had some amazing dialogue. Had some amazing, you know, it had some standout moments. It had some standout memorable moments. And I love Gunji. So
Yeah,
what's not to love?
I wish this was this was in my top 5 of this season, but it isn't. But it's still a fantastic episode. I love this episode. Matt Michnovetz knows what he's doing by now. He's written so much Star Wars now. Again, he knows what he's doing. You good?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm just trying to research. Trying to find.
Okay.
I'll find it.
Matt Michnovetz, another classic with this episode. Love that shit. You know, I also love you know, we're gonna visit Kashyyyk pretty soon after this in Fallen Order, which was also co-written by Matt Michnovetz.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And yeah. It's a damn good episode. I wish Gunji had popped up again this season. I thought he had a bigger role to play, but I'm hopeful that we'll see him and that tribe of Wookiees again in some way. And yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this episode of Star Wars and Galaxy. Next week, we're gonna be doing the 2-part mid-season episode, the Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences. Which are, I think, my 2 favorite episodes of this season. But in the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at NGalaxyPod, at Star Wars in a Galaxy on Instagram. You can listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, where you listen to your podcasts. We will be there. If we're not, email us swngalaxy@gmail.com. You can watch Epic Confrontations, our spinoff show on our YouTube channel, which I believe Alden versus Brennan will be up very soon. If not by this episode, by the next week. We're very excited for that match. And we're excited for you to see what goes on in it. We haven't recorded it yet, but we will, and we're very excited for that. But I think in the meantime, may the force be with you.
Always.
Always.